Does this guy, Regan, even know anything about the environment? Well, we looked into him, and the only reason he was nominated to run the EPA was because he promised to fight off environmental racism. Is this his idea of fighting environmental racism, spilling toxic chemicals on poor white people in Ohio?
Okay, so there's a lot there. First of all, the fact that he has said that he would fight environmental racism, it's a bit of a jump to then say that's the only reason he was put in the position. But I appreciate Jesse Waters making the effort of at least pretending that it was about the quote, rather than, look, we know what he's doing. Michael S. Regan is black, thus he couldn't be qualified for the position according to someone like Jesse Waters. He had to be put there for something to do with race. And also, I'm gonna claim that he's purposefully poisoning white people. Why? Because he intentionally spilled the chemicals that were released after the train derailed in East Palestine. That's deranged in like 7 different directions at the same time. First of all, even if he is the head of the EPA, he wasn't running the train. That's insane. And that's also skipping over the fact that Jesse Waters is now openly claiming that it was an intentional derailment. We can also criticize that the conspiracy theory that it was intentionally derailed specifically to kill white people. That's the sort of race war part of this that he's so eager for. But the idea that it was intentionally derailed seems like it would require a little bit of evidence, Brett, but he can just state it.
We already found out earlier in the show with the revelation of text messages around Dominion that they don't mean anything. They're just being the worst they can possibly be on purpose. And it's weird. So Jesse Waters, I'll play that game too. Jesse Waters just turned against Reagan on Fox News. He turned against Reagan, anti-Reagan Jesse Waters. And also, Jesse, what's your last name? Waters. How do I know? And what is poison? Waters. How do I know you're not poisoning yourself, who also is white? Joke's on you, Jesse. It's so stupid. Okay, what state does this happen in? This happened in Ohio. Who runs Ohio? Red state. It's a red state. It's got a Republican governor. It just elected JD Vance. Then also, who was responsible for this? Deregulation, buddy. And who is the champion of deregulation? You guys. If I were to, before this derailment started, say, oh, there is this initiative that will end up poisoning people, a pipeline maybe, a railroad, you would say, how dare they put these unfair regulations on these corporations so that they can't put people to work? That is your line. Your actions led to stuff like this. Your entire ethos led to stuff like this. And yes, there are people in the Democratic Party. There's a current president of the United States who's siding with the railroad company on this.
Yeah, which we'll get to.
Yeah, and you should blame them for that. But you also, unfortunately, in doing that, would have to blame yourself and blame every day on Fox News where they say it's actually these left-wing environmentalist, hippy-dippy regulators who are trying to cripple industry in America.
Yeah. Very frequently, I don't find Jesse Waters to be particularly interesting amongst right-wing media figures. But I do think that this is worth pointing out because, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here, this story, and not just about Jesse Waters, this is part of now a right-wing media-wide campaign to make this entire environmental disaster about a war on white people. Yeah. This is why right-wing media exists. Like everything about right-wing media is encapsulated in this story. What do you actually have in reality? You have a horrific tragedy that didn't need to happen, that was caused by out of control corporate power that they gained by using lobbyists to buy politicians and stop regulations from being put into effect. Any reasonable coverage of this news would necessitate identifying that, and a solution would involve reining in that corporate power. That's what actually should happen in reality. So what do they need? Well, they don't want that. So what they need is a race war against white people, where some powerful elite black guy working at the EPA is secretly trying to kill your white babies. So let's focus on that. And it's amazing because not only does it allow them to cover a story that happened while Biden was president, so it makes Biden look bad, but it makes it seem as if they care about what happened to the people that live in the area, All the while, they are trying to make sure that everyone stays laser focused on the EPA, on Michael Regan, on all of these people who didn't cause this, so that they will not focus on Norfolk Southern, other railroad companies, deregulation that has happened over the course of decades, the state of employment in the railroads, as many workers have been fired intentionally to save money for the railroad companies, making it harder to maintain the trains and stop them from derailing. This is right-wing media. It's taking people who've already been victimized and will likely be victimized in the future and getting them to focus on how black people are trying to kill them so they won't realize that corporations are killing them.
Their highest priority, right-wing people like Jesse Waters, their highest priority is to create conditions that lead to these kinds of incidents. That is their highest priority. Everything else, they don't care. They want to be as rich as possible, and they don't care the actual toll that it costs the American people.
Yeah,
that's it. And then that's what they want. Then they come up with what they want to say that they think will help them gain the power to create that one condition. That's it. Every New York Republican, every rich blue city Republican's goal is to be as rich as possible. And every unholy romance they forge with the holy rollers of America is toward that one end. Everything else is a rhetorical compromise so they can deregulate industry.
Yeah.
And they come up with what they want to say in order to get Ma and Pa Poor White to go along with them. And the thing they want to say, one of those things is there's a war on white people. And take a second and think of how long they have worked to get to the point where they can just say it. If they said that in 1997, they said that in 2007, if they said it in 2017, people would lose their minds. It wasn't until about 2018 in Trump's reign that they got to say. And today, who's saying it? Jesse Waters, Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump. They're all actually saying the words, there's a war on white people.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm so glad that you focused on that because like we're doing this segment to fight back against that. But yeah, you need to vocally point out how crazy it is. I just accept that. No, the right wing constantly talks about this, but we shouldn't. We shouldn't allow it to be normalized, even to the extent that I did in the way that I framed this story. You're totally right. It is deranged storm front stuff that has now become totally normalized. In the same way that the craziest ravings of Alex Jones is now just what Tucker does on a Tuesday, the racism that used to be consigned to the radical fringe of the internet now is broadcast on Fox News to an audience of millions every night. With Charlie Kirk saying it was part of an intentional war on white people, they're doing it intentionally. Fox host Greg Gutfeld blamed wokeism and then said they're injecting race into everything as Fox News is injecting race into this to distract people. Donald Trump Jr. said that the people of East Palestine should pretend to be Palestinians because then the Biden administration will actually pay some attention to them. Benny Johnson also said if this had happened in California, everyone would be paying attention to it, but it's inside a red state and they supported Trump, so nobody is. Interesting little rhetorical question, all of them. Why is it that progressives were the first people to cover this story for many days before the mainstream media started talking about it? Since we hate red states and Trump voters more than anyone, why were we doing so much critical coverage to make sure that they get the help that they need? That's a great question that they, of course, will never engage intellectually with. No, the entire thing it's a distraction. If you, as a right winger, accept the framing that they're saying, you accept all of this. What happens going forward? How does hating the EPA, hating Michael Regan, how does that make another derailment less likely to happen? Don't you think it's weird that they're disarming you at the very time when we should be focusing on protecting you in the future? For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.